How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay.
Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. No problem.
Okay. Looks like my internet just dropped out, so I'm going to try to get back into the Zoom here.
Okay. Well, go ahead. I'm going to put myself on mute.
Okay.
Ron Hampton, what's up, man?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good, man. Probably haven't seen you. Trying to think. Last time I saw you, been by maybe 2-3 years now.
Yeah.
The last time I saw you was we were over at Fort. Man, where was that? It was a Stop Police Terror Project meeting.
Oh, it was over on good old road.
No, not the. You're all over the place.
Oh, now listen, it was at the library because I remember
Yeah, that wasn't Good Hope Road. Where was that? It wasn't like. Oh,
it was at the Anacostia Art Museum.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Yeah.
There was another. What was the other one?
I know we were over there, and then they had a meeting over here in Brookline, Ridge Park.
I think it was that one.
Off South Dakota Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, it was nice to see you on that the list of the commission here. You know, I was just with I'm up in New York actually, so I hung out with Eugene Perrier last night.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew he's lived up here for a few years, but we always love talking about you and learning from you. So I know I'll let him know you said what's up when I see him.
Yeah, please do, please do. I like Eugene. I certainly do. He had a lot of passion and energy.
You know, so much of my organizing in DC was, someone organizing in DC was kind of focused off of what he was doing. Just real talented. Oh, cool. Hey, Layla.
Hey, of course, I joined and then my internet decided to act up and like kicked me out of the Zoom, but I had let Ron in. So I was like, I'll be right back. And I could still hear on audio, and I guess it didn't kick you out of the meeting, Ron. So that's great. And I'm back. So, cool. Yeah.
I think it is the neighborhood. I do my radio show from home. Ron, I started hosting my own show. Eugene left, and Sean Blackman, who I think you know from Stop Police Terror Project, and Jacqueline Lukman. Do you know Jackie Lukman?
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, her and Abdus Lukman. You guys have probably run across each other. They do a lot of organizing with
Right.
Reverend Hagler and Paca.
Oh, yeah.
And she works with the Real News as well. But anyways, they took over by any means necessary, and I started hosting a new show called Political Misfits. So you fit right in with us.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, they got a great setup over at Real News too.
Yeah.
I've been over there a couple of times, had a chance to meet and interact with them. They've had some good stuff over there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey Ron, can you move your video camera just down a little bit, and then we'll catch your whole face? Yeah, there we go. It's too good looking not to see it all. There we go.
Yeah, yeah. So no, it's been this has been interesting. It really has. Really interesting. Really interesting.
We can start chatting in a few minutes. Layla and I, I'm not sure how much she told you. We co-chair, co-support, co-organize, collaborate on this public safety coalition. The work I bring to the table has been organizing different community groups, nonprofit business, government, health, so forth, as a complement to the violence interruption programs that are in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, we haven't had much folks, but we've had a partnership with the ANC, which is where Layla comes in. So we're excited to learn a little bit about the commission tonight from you, and hopefully a few of our neighbors join.
Okay.
But we'll give it a few minutes
Okay.
for people to pop on. Hey, Rose. Hey, Cynthia.
Hey.
Hey. Hi. Good night, everyone. How are you doing?
Good.
Thanks for being with us.
Rose, where do you live in the neighborhood?
I'm on Perry Place, 1400 block, 1414.
Yeah, great. Have you guys been organizing with the folks that I was on a few calls with, the pod there? So you're in
Adam
Layla's,
and Whitney.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Rose has been a great help.
Yeah, I can imagine. What have you guys been up to? What ended up kind of coming of your work as the community?
So we are wrapping up our census outreach, and then we're focusing on voter education right now. And then we do like bi-weekly drop-offs to the Hubbard. And then kind of like ad hoc support for neighbors as we receive those requests. And then some of it's honestly been just like community building around some like social aspects as well. So like Whitney is getting married in a week or so. And so we're planning a surprise, like socially distant toast for her and her new husband. And so like, you know, just trying to maintain community through some of this as well.
Yeah, that's
but
great.
Rose, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I was going to say we do our community cleanup once a month or more frequently, which gives us a chance to check in with neighbors because we usually do on a Saturday or Sunday. So we get a chance, and then we all gather in the park afterwards and catch up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we have one on Saturday.
Yeah, this coming
Although
Saturday.
I'm looking and it's threatening some rain, so we may need to push back a day. We'll see.
And then Cynthia, do you live in the neighborhood? I know it's not required, but do you live in Ward 1?
She's still muted.
Okay.
And Bob, where do you live?
I live at 11th and Lamont.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I kind of shade more of our work's been primarily at Columbia Heights Village. Bless you. We've been doing a lot towards kind of Columbia Heights Village area there, 14th and Columbia. Has been the focus of MAMDC, but but otherwise, yeah, most of the work across the ward. So, hey, CJ, we're just talking about your home, Columbia Heights Village, your birthplace. I assume you weren't actually born at Columbia Heights Village, though.
He's still muted also.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Larry, you want to get us started? Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Let me. What is happening? Okay. I'm gonna drop into the chat. Oh, do we not have a chat? Interesting. This is what happens when we use the like ANC admin account, and I'm like, what features will be disabled? Okay, well, I will leave us in video or in gallery mode to do introductions, and then I have a Google Doc where I wanted us to just like, I know some people are visual learners, so I can pull that up to have the overview of the commission and things like that. And it seems like we have a little bit of background noise. I'm going to mute Rose. Sorry, Rose. Okay. All right. So, hi, everybody. I think I've met all of you, and I've just had a chance to meet Ron Hampton, our guest tonight. I'm Layla Bonneau, the commissioner for ANC 1A01 in Northern Columbia Heights. And I actually wanted to start tonight off with a moment of reflection. Today, Dion Kay's family held a funeral for him. And yesterday, we heard the verdict for Breonna Taylor's case. In addition, we are having this, enduring this global health pandemic, and it's impacting our community members in different ways. But I just wanted us to pause and make space and just recognize that everybody's going through different things right now, and just appreciate you all being here. So if we could just hold that space for the next minute. Okay. Thank you for participating in that with me. And tonight we're going to be talking about the newly formed DC Police Reform Commission, and would love to just hear from neighbors on, you know, we'll go over kind of like why the commission was set up and what it set out to do. As I mentioned earlier, we have one of the representatives from the commission, Mr. Ron Hampton, with us tonight, which is great. And I think this will be the beginning of a conversation where some other commission members weren't able to join us tonight, but did offer some follow-up conversations. So I think it would be great if as a community we could draft some notes or questions or recommendations, or figure out the best way to give feedback to the DC Police Reform Commission as they're working on their own set of recommendations to submit to council at the end of the year. All right, so let's do introductions, and then I can pull up that Google Doc with the overview of the commission, and we'll make sure to give Ron some time to talk about his involvement as well. So if neighbors, we can start with Rose, if you want to just say, you know, where you live and what brought you to this month's meeting, that would be great. Rose, I think you are muted, so you will need to unmute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Rose Schneider.
Right.
I live at 1414 Perry Place, right off of 14th Street. I've been in the neighborhood. No puedo hablar ahora. Te llamaré. Okay. Sorry. I've been here, I think 32 years, and originally I'm from Kentucky, and I'm a public health advisor. And I came to this meeting because, well, many reasons. I've been concerned about the interaction between police and the community, and the job that they're doing and how they have constraints based on their job descriptions. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. Let's go to Bob.
Yeah, my name is Bob Schlehuber. I live at 1120 Lamont Street. I am passionate about organizing around public health and public safety amongst different issues. I am a peace builder by trade, which is the kind of intersection between organizer, activist, and artist. Organizer, artist, and producer. And so this conversation, I'm really excited to talk with Ron. One thing that I'm really kind of fascinated about is the evolution of policing. And it's really interesting hearing about Ron's time with the MPD compared to the police that we see now, and how that overplays with the politics of our moment. So I look forward, as always, to learning from Ron tonight and hearing from others.
Thanks, Bob. CJ, could I ask you to go next?
Sure. Yeah, my name is CJ. I grew up in Columbia Heights, and I organize in Columbia Heights as well. And I organize with a few different folks. Organized with Bob with the Public Safety Coalition and the Mutual Aid Movement, DC, and I also work with Riser organizers. And yeah, I'm excited to be on this call just to hear from hear about what this policing panel or commission is. You know, what's the goals and what, you know, what's materially is going to be manifested in our community here in World One, and what that means for us. So yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, CJ.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
And Vicky, if you're able to unmute and introduce yourself and share what brought you to this month's meeting, that'd be great.
All right, give me a minute. Okay. Well, most of you, if you don't know, I'm a former ANC commissioner. Just been interested in, or getting back interested in what's going on in the community safety-wise and seeing what I can offer. I'm on my way home from Costco, but I didn't want to miss out because I had you on my calendar. So I'm going to take my picture off and just listen in if you don't mind.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Vicky. Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right, and Cynthia?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was having problems with my phone. I'm Cynthia Tercios. I'm the Ward 1 Outreach Specialist from the Mayor's Office, and I'm just joining for awareness. And if there's anything that I can add, I'm more than happy to do so. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Cynthia. And then, Ron, do you want to do a brief introduction now, and then just about yourself, and then we'll have more time for you to go into your role about the commission a little later?
Oh, no, you're on mute, Ron. Yeah.
Yeah, I can introduce myself now, and then we can talk later on about the commission and stuff. My name is Ronald Hampton. Like most Washingtonians, I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., educated here. I'm also I'm a Vietnam veteran. I served on the Metropolitan Police Department from and I retired in 1994. Spent 24 years there. Also, I live in Ward 4 on Allison Street, and have been, active in a lot of things in the city. I have my family's here. I have an oldest daughter. My older daughter lives in Phoenix. We have a son who's our middle child. He's the person with autism. He's Quentin is 36, and then my youngest daughter is 27 to be 28 this year. She happens to live with us here, and also she's a teacher in early childhood person in the early childhood center. She teaches there and work with young children. So this is something that has been close to my heart and I've been involved in for a lot of years. So it's a very interesting conversation, and I too have been paying very much attention to this whole idea of the evolution of policing and reimagining and defunding and all of the all of the terms that we've been using. So anxious to talk about them with people and get your ideas about what it is that you think we ought to be doing in our city as it relates to public safety.
Thanks so much, Ron. And we did have Satara join us while you were introducing yourself. So if you're able to come off mute, we're just doing introductions about where you live and your role in the community and what brought you to tonight's meeting. So if you are able to unmute, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely. Hi there. Hi, everyone. Sorry to join a little bit late. Hi there. My name is Satara Yell, and I'm the Strategy and Innovation Officer at the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And I'm a Ward 6 resident. And I know our director was not able to attend tonight, but I'm just here to listen into the conversation a bit. I know it intersects with our work, although it is not directly related to our work, but it sounds like a very interesting conversation agenda this night. And if there are any questions, I hope I can answer them.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, and we may have a couple additional stragglers, but we will go ahead and get underway. I did want to tell people we are recording tonight, and that's mainly because, like I mentioned, there were some additional commission members who are unable to join, and I'm going to pull up a Google Doc and take a few notes while we're chatting, but I want to make sure that the great questions or comments or recommendations that you all are making, that we accurately share them with the commission. So I did want to make people aware that we are recording. All right, so I'm going to pull this up, and it helps if I share the screen. No, you can't see that. Okay. And all right, can people see this, and is it big enough?
Roll it up.
Yes. Okay. All right. So currently, there are 20 members of the community on the Police Reform Commission, and Ron can speak to this much better than I can, but the commission is led by 2 co-chairs. And I did just want to pull up the language from the DC Council bill that created the commission. So in case you haven't had a chance to read up on what the commission is tasked to do, I can give folks maybe, a minute or so to look over these bullet points, and then we'll also pull up, the commission has self-divided into 5 committees, and I can share what those are as well. And then, Ron, I'd love to invite you to kind of talk about how you were selected for the commission and what the process has been so far in terms of you all meeting, creating these committees, and the best way for community members to get involved with you all. Okay, so here are the areas where the commission is going to be making recommendations. And so the 5 kind of committees or areas that you'll see are laid out here. I can leave that up. And I believe the commission has met twice, but I did want to make sure if anyone wants to navigate to the site right now or later, and I can share this out after as well, but there is dcpolicereform.com, which I can just pull up briefly. This is where you can see, no, that is not their website. That is the council website. Sorry about that. Where you can see the upcoming calendar and the committees and the meeting documents. So if you really want to go back and look at any of that, this committee page is probably more useful for us. Sorry about that. This is a really helpful site, as well as there is a Facebook group that is just DC Police Reform Commission. So if you want to go follow that or check out, you know, prior videos or resources that have been shared, it does appear that everything is pretty transparent and public on that side. Great, so let me go back to kind of here and the purpose of the commission. And Ron, can you walk us through sort of like how you were approached to be part of the commission and just share the work that you all have been doing, I believe, since August?
All right, yeah, I'm able to do that. First of all, let me, again, thank you for inviting me in, as well as taking advantage of the opportunity to talk to people in our community. I was aware that the legislation had passed, and I was really more aware of the content of the legislation as it related to the reform of police, the reform of policing and public safety. Later on, I learned Mr. Gray's amendment to the original legislation, and that was the creation of the Police Reform Commission, as well as, and the council chair, of course, accepted it. And I guess whoever the sponsors of the legislation was accepted the amendment, and then it became part of it. And I was glad that that was added to it, because as I follow this stuff all over the country, really, sometimes all over the world, because we have some of this going on in other places in terms of looking at policing and what they do and how they do it, whether it's successful or not. So I was quite interested in and happy that they had pulled this together. And in my community in Ward 4, I'm a part of the Ward 4 Education Alliance and other things having to do with education. Because before I worked at the place that I work now, I worked at Roosevelt and ran the Community Resource Center there. And so I just stuck with it. That's where my daughter graduated from Roosevelt too. So we happened to be on a call, on a Zoom meeting, and Council Member Mendelson regularly also attends our Zoom meeting. And so he had mentioned something to me about it and said he wanted to talk to me. And so we had a conversation, and he mentioned to me about serving on this body. And so I told him that I would definitely accept it and look forward to working with it. And that was it. And then this must have been about, because I think he had to do it before the middle of the month. I'm not sure if it was, I think it was in October, not October, in August. He had the task of putting all this together and naming it and then putting it out. And so we had also talked about, because some years ago when we first met, I was serving on and he must have been talking about, I served on the selection committee for the chief of police here for former Mayor Marion Barry a couple of times, but the last time he was in office and had the responsibility of selecting the chief of police. I served on that and has been involved in some of these issues before. And so we got the word that we were selected, and they published the list. And there's some people on the list that I know, and then there's some people on the list that I know of. I don't know personally everybody on the list, but the work that I've been doing, you know, for the last 50 years have taken me into the area of public safety and policing, and I've had the pleasure and honor of working with some of the people on the list, and if not them personally, around some of the issues that they represent on the list. So this is, I think Layla mentioned, we've only had 2 meetings. We were sworn in on the second meeting. The first meeting, we had a chance to meet one another, get introduced. But we also began to talk about the open meeting rules. We begin to talk about our charge, what it was that we were going to do, and how we were going to be going about doing it, and all of that. At the second meeting, at the end of the first meeting, we also were informed that it was going to be divided up into these 5 committees, and that we would be serving on 2 committees each, and that the main work of the commission would be done in these committees. And so those committees, when we in between the first and second meeting, we were sent the information about the committees, and then had to select and then get in touch with our co-chair and let her know what it was that we wanted to do. And the committees are policing schools and policing youth, assessing and expanding violent reduction efforts, including non-police responses, building up non-police community health and safety interventions, reforms to MPD practices, force search, stops, recruitment and training, and lastly, Metropolitan Police accountability and oversight, internal and external. I selected the ones that I'm serving on and selected, of course, assessing and expanding violence reduction efforts, including non-police responses. And what they're looking at, you know, we're going to be looking at some of the nonviolent community-based efforts that's going on in the city to prevent and intervene in issues in the community, like the credible messenger program, cure violence, all of those kind of things. So, and some of that I've been doing because I've worked with some of the organizations that have been doing it, like the Alliance of Concerned Men. I know Tyrone Parker, him and I grew up, came out of the same community. Beverly Smith and them, Courtney Stewart, who works with this organization, Alliance of Returning Citizens. So I know these guys, and I worked with them, and I know also that they have worked very hard and done very good work in the community, sometimes with resources and sometimes without resources from the government. But they have a mandate of their own, and they actively been involved in it. The other committee that I'm serving on is policing schools and policing youth. There's been not only a local, but a national effort to really look into this whole idea of having police in schools. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. During my police career, I was an officer friendly. And I want to tell you that an officer friendly is very different than a school resource officer. As an officer friendly, I was involved in teaching, conducting classes in the schools. And I was assigned to several schools to do that. I was not assigned in the school or at the school. And that's the difference. School resource officers assigned in the schools. We were not assigned in the schools. We were assigned to teach, instruct, and other things in the school. During my police career, I was even assistant coach for Cadosa's basketball team. That was one of my schools at the time. So those are 2 very different things. So we're going to be looking at that because there's a move to reduce the footprint, almost totally eliminate the footprint of police officers in schools. So it's going to be, I just think it's going to be very interesting. It's also a very timely, all of these are very timely issues in terms of looking into them. There's a boatload of research out there, both pro and cons for these issues. And we're going to be looking at it. And then plus we're going to be calling in people who are actually doing it, because that's where you're going to really get the information, people who are actually on the ground doing these kind of things in the community. So we're going to be talking to folk. We're going to be talking to people who have the job and responsibility of overseeing some of these things and doing it. We were told by Mr. Blaine, who works for the chair of the council, that anytime we wanted to talk to anybody, any agency, to let him know, and he would arrange for that to happen, because there, people will have to respond, just like they would have to respond to the council and give testimony. And then lastly, before I make it, our meetings are open. The main meetings are open. The committee meetings are open too, although there's a portion of the committee meetings that may not be open if we don't have a quorum. All of that is in the Open Meetings Act. Excuse me. I'm not familiar with it. I have it in my possession, and we're catching up and learning all of this stuff. But the main thing I think you want to know is that there are open meetings. The website, and we encourage you to participate. We encourage you to be a part of it. And the idea of suggesting recommendations is absolutely fantastic, because we have a job to do. Now, I want to, before we get to the question, and I know because you all probably have some questions on that, there are something that I need to say to you all. I have, of course, I've been working in this stuff for an awful long time. And so I have my own positions on all of this. And I'm not bashful or ashamed about my positions. And then there's the work of the commission, which the commission hasn't taken a position on any of this. We're in the throes of doing the work, and we haven't had a conversation or even a conversation around what are people's views. Maybe that's going to take place, but that hasn't taken place yet. So there are two kind of answers I can give you this evening, and that is an answer representing the commission, which hasn't taken a position on things, like I said, and then my position, personally my position, and I do have one because I've been working on this stuff all my life, and I would be remiss and not to somehow or another lead you to believe that I don't have a position or think about what it is that I'm doing and why we're doing it, or even why we need to do it. So, having said that, I'm open.
Thank you so much, Ron. That was really helpful, and appreciate that nuance between you representing yourself as opposed to the commission, and how we can just better understand those ways to engage with the commission, but also hear about your experience and your positions on these issues as well. We did have 2 additional community members join while you were speaking. So we'll see if they're able to come off mute and introduce themselves. I see Anne from DC. If you'd like to introduce yourself, say where you live in the community and what brought you to tonight's meeting, that would be great. And you might be on mute. All right, I know not everyone is able to unmute to join the conversation. So Anne from DC, if you are able to do that later, that'd be great as well. How about Adam Perry? Thanks for joining. If you wanna just introduce yourself and share what brought you to tonight's meeting, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Perry. I live on the 600 block of Newton Place, and I'm a teacher at DCPS, or DCPS High School, and I'm interested particularly in non-police solutions to gun violence. My block in particular, we've had 4 shootings in the last 6 weeks, and you know, what we've been doing as a city isn't working. It's not helping. And so I saw the agenda for this meeting, and thought I'd pop in and see if there's anything I can do to contribute.
Thanks. Thanks for being here.
Ann Hoffman.
Oh, hi, Ann.
Hi. I live in Kenyon Square, 14th and Kenyon. Been here about 4 years. There's an interesting divide in my building between the people who love the police and the people who say police aren't doing quite right now, but that's okay. And I attended a meeting last night, Ward 8, how to improve safety. And I found it fascinating. It was all African-American people, mostly women, but not all. Mostly, I would say, in their 30s. And they're all running organizations east of the river that are trying to keep things calm. I think they would be a useful addition to hear from sometime, any of them. Anyway, that's.
Thanks, Ann. Apparently there's no chat function for this Zoom that we're running, but if you are able to email me any of those organization names, I'd be happy to contact them and see how we could work together across board. Appreciate it. Did you want to share the name of any of the organizations, or we can also connect offline?
Well, certainly Black Swan Academy is one of them. They had 2 people there. And Matter DC. The rest, I'm not sure I could think.
Collective Action for Safe Spaces was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, the coordinating committee, all of them.
They were not speaking, as I recall. I mean,
I think
they
Don't Cease the Brother, or Don't Shoot the Brother, Al Malik Farrakhan's organization as well.
Yeah, he was there. There's a new one called Trigger. It's founded by a woman who founded another one before that.
Yeah, that's great, Layla. I can get you we can get some of that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Great.
Yeah.
And hi, we just had someone join via phone, number ending in 042. Thanks for being here. Are you able to go off mute and introduce yourself to the group?
Satara. I'm just switching to phone from computer because I need to travel somewhere and I couldn't chat it. So just an FYI, thanks.
No worries. Thanks. Okay, great. All right, so I will pull this back up. Okay. So, I already had a chance to ask my question of Ron, which was basically like, how were you recruited to be part of this? And tell us about, the work of the commission to date. And so would love to hear from others on the line, either questions about like, what is the commission doing between now and December? Is December still the deadline to get the council recommendations? And this was the first that I heard that all the meetings and committee meetings are open. And so I think that could be a really great opportunity for us to engage as well. So I'm
just kind of curious if I could just ask real quick, Ron. I don't want to. I'm not asking this as to be facetious, but why is a police reform commission needed? What's happened, or what is happening that there are reforms needed to take place?
Oh man, the reason that that the Reform Commission is happening is some is because of the national issues that are going on around policing. There's a level of trust and confidence that's not there. Having been a police officer myself, I can tell you that there's there's a racial profiling and discrimination in the city when it comes to policing. There's a different kind of police force, even though it's the same police force that works, say in our city, West 16th Street and west of 16th Street versus in far southeast and Anacostia and Ward 8. And these are issues that's been going on for a long time. I was on the police force from 1970 to 1994, and I can tell you that they were issues then. They were glaring. They were not addressed. We talked about it. We've had organizations come in here and do analysis around not stop and frisk. We've had organizations come in and do analysis around the traffic stops and all of that. And those issues still exist now. And we haven't addressed it. And policing in this country is about 150 years old. And it hasn't changed. What we've done is tinkle with it around the edges, but reform has not happened. It has not happened. We are still grappling with the same issues we were grappling with in this police department that they were grappling with during my time. And I was not only a police officer, I was someone who spoke out because I was head of the Black Police Association in Washington, D.C. And then later became the head of the National Black Police Association. And we were speaking out on those issues, talking about racism and discrimination, talking about the intervention, talking about the involvement of the union that was it was intrusive as it related to trying to bring about change. And that's still the case now. I mean, the union has gone to court to sue somebody about the changes that they have proposed. I don't keep up with it because even when I was on the department, I refused to be a member of the union because it was discriminatory then, and so I didn't. So it's just time. This is something that's not only going on in Washington, D.C., it's going on across the country. And in cities like that we've had confrontations in with the police and citizens, there have been legislations that have proposed certain actions, like doing away with the chokehold, doing away with the carotid artery hold, doing away with no-knock warrants, doing away with certain other behaviors of the police, doing away with, let me back up, reducing the footprint of the police in our schools, reducing the footprint when it comes to the police handling issues around people with mental health situations, a whole host of things. So it's time for me, it's just time to re-examine those. It's time to look at it. It's time to look at the budget. It's time to look at what it is that police officers do. If police departments were treated and looked at as Fortune 500 companies, we would have dismantled them a long time ago. Because if you're not producing, if you're not doing what it is that people want, and I'm not talking about some people, I'm talking about all the people. If you're not producing that, then why do you exist? So this is the time.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks, Ron. Rose, did you have a question?
Well, the 4 or 5 areas that they were supposed to talk about seems like there wasn't anything on unions, which we all know is a big problem and what keeps some things from being accountable. I didn't see anything on accountability or job descriptions, but especially unions.
There's in the fourth on the list, the last item is called Metropolitan Police Department Accountability and Oversight. And that's the issue that we're going to be addressing. The Committee on Police, Metropolitan Police Department Accountability and Oversight will focus on current mechanisms for internal external oversight of MPD, determine whether additional or different mechanisms are needed, what structures, changes are needed to promote accountability in both individual officers and agencies. And I want to tell you that unions is included in there because they will, in the negotiating process, unions get involved in talking about discipline. They get involved in talking about house man hours, structure for work, and all of those kind of things. So if we're going to thoroughly and comprehensively look at these issues, then we got to talk about the union. It's no way.
Yeah, it just wasn't in there. I
no,
mean,
it's not mentioned in the title, but it's part of it. Yeah. So yeah, we will be looking at police unions, our police union, no question.
Okay.
Thanks, Rose. Anne?
I may have missed this, but is there discussion of alternatives to police, or is that for another day?
No, that's part of one of the things that we're going to be looking at, because we've been engaged in alternatives to police for some time now. I mean, we've been doing that kind of work in this city. It goes back to when Marion Barry was the mayor, because he had individuals, formerly incarcerated individuals, community people who were performing community organizing, intervention with young people, a whole host of things. So we've been doing that for years. That's not new. Now, what is new is the idea, wait a minute, let me back up. The idea of police working with professionals around mental health issues is not new either, because during my time on the Metropolitan Police Department during the 80s, we actually had units that were police officers and social workers and psychologists rode together in the same cars and responded to runs. So that in a kind of real way, there's nothing new in policing. We just haven't had the patience to do it long enough that to enjoy we've seen the results of it, but we haven't had the patience enough to do it long enough where it really made a difference. And when money got short, those were the first programs to go during my time, rather than to stick with them, because we knew that in the long run, they were going to net the results that we really wanted. So we're looking at those because they've been here all along. We need to look at them and also talk about the effectiveness of it. What we don't have, for example, is that when we have calls for service in the community, and it's people with disabilities, it's people with mental health issues, I personally, and I say I, because I want to separate myself from my role at the commission, I think police shouldn't be responding. I think mental health professionals should respond. I think people who know and trained and educated on working with people with disabilities should respond. And those are the alternatives that we see in some agencies taking place now. There's some police departments that are doing just that. And so we're going to be looking at all of those things from the commission standpoint. We're going to be looking at all of that. But those are things that in some ways, in some places, we've sort of played with. And when I say we, I mean the policing community had played with it, and for one reason or another, not doing it anymore. But not because it didn't work, because a lot of those programs did work.
There was an incident that caught my attention when the 20 people were shot at the party somewhere east of the river a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. And there was a police woman who was injured, who was attending the party.
Yeah.
I wondered, A, didn't she know something was going on? And B, how many other officers were at that party?
Well, let me tell you, I don't know. What I know about it is I read about it. I don't know any of the details, so I can't answer any of those questions because I don't know the answer to them. I read about it in the paper, heard about it on TV and the radio, and that was it. I knew that there was this one policewoman that was there, and she was off duty, wounded. Just like, and I heard that on TV. I don't know any of the other details about it. I will tell you this, that the city has an auditor, and her name is Kathy Patterson, the former Patterson. And in the auditor's office, part of her responsibility now is that she's looking at a variety of shootings that the police department have been involved in. And we were told about this at the commission. And she has raised this issue and put the police department on notice, plus have brought in some independent investigators that are asking for certain information, and they're going to be interviewing and investigating the shootings that have taken place here to see if there's some errors and problems with the policy, number one, whether or not they're following the policy, why they're not following the policy, just the whole 9 yards. Is something about the investigations that's not right? So we'll be waiting for her and the investigators, report on those shootings. The last shooting that they had out in Southeast of the young man, she has also included that shooting in the investigation that she's doing.
Yeah.
And then the results from that investigation will be made public.
Ron, I wanted to ask, I'm somebody that is very vocal on the need to defund the police and work towards abolishing the police. And I understand that there's many steps in between. And what you all are looking at is to see the alternatives to policing, that we don't always have to rely on police for all types of emergencies. However, I think the other problem that we have to be honest with is that we've conditioned ourselves as communities to always call the police, the instinctual reaction. And therefore, I think government, in a way, internally, the government has also overly relied on the police. We've seen an erosion of a lot of different agencies, and they'll just default. What should the police do? So how much of it is, one, addressing kind of police reform, but it seems like there's another layer to that of deconditioning our response to police and needing to not only invest in other agencies, but also to, in a way, condition ourselves to respond and go to them and pressure them into filling those gaps. Because it's one thing to say you must fill it, but it's another thing of moving that. So how do you think about that?
Well, personally, I think that the points you raised are very important. And yes, we have been conditioned not only by government, but we've been conditioned by the police to call the police. And because there was a time when the police told us that call us because we're going to come, and we're going to get there quickly. And when we get there, we're going to do something. And the fact of the matter is the research will show that they might have got there quickly, but they didn't do anything. And to some extent, communities are still left standing there waiting for the police to do what it is that they said they was going to do. So I maintain that this isn't the commission's point of view, but I maintain in the process of looking at these issues, we're going to be assessing those very issues, whether or not the police have been not only successful, but have they been effective. And you will hear police chiefs say, well, we get called for things that we shouldn't get called for. Well, I believe we're going to be looking at that issue also, because if a person who's having a mental health episode calls the police and the police can't help them, then why call the police? But what we had to do is not only be educated, we had to demonstrate that who you need to call is the mental health people. And the mental health people has to play a role in that process of responding to those calls. And it's not just policing, but then government, because we have a Department of Behavioral Health. We have all of those agencies within government that are designed to help those people, but they're not part of the equation when we talk about responding to those calls now. And what personally I would like to see, or I think that maybe a year or two from now, policing won't look like it does today. And I'm all right with that, because what that would say to me is that we have properly analyzed and evaluated it to the extent that what we have now is what we really need, and the public has to be a part of that process. Because at the end of the day, the police work for the public, they don't work for themselves. And that the public has to be involved in designing the response to what it is that they want the police to do. I'll say this lastly, there are communities in this country who have been working on that issue even before this defunding stuff. They've been working on reducing the footprint of the police in their community. And the way that they've gone about it is to evaluate and assess what resources they have in that community, other than that of law enforcement, and then train and educate the individuals in their community and other agencies to be able to respond to those issues. And a lot of times it's such things as dealing with youth, it's mental health issues, it's domestic violence cases, neighborhood arguments. The police don't respond to those calls in some communities, and people have been able to utilize the other alternative ways to deal with those issues and successfully reduce the footprint of law enforcement, therefore leaving law enforcement ready to respond to those issues that really have to do with the danger and violence in that particular community. But they've been able to even bring the violence and danger stuff down to a place where the community looks very different than what it did 6 and 7 months ago. So I can see those kind of things happening here as well as other places as we look at these issues, because utilizing the government terms, a lot of this is going to have to be based on some evidence that it has worked or not worked somewhere else. And again, I will reiterate that in policing, there's really nothing new. We've done some of this stuff before, but we didn't have enough patience to really do it long enough to see whether or not it was working and doing what it is that the public wanted, not about the police, but what the public wanted.
And it's not only when somebody is having an episode in the middle of the street somewhere, but it's, getting rec centers open so kids can go there after school. And it's, not shutting down a metropolitan high school when kids who will drop out otherwise are succeeding there. There's so much that we need to be doing that we're not. I tried a case in Baltimore 35 years ago, and it was kids who got picked up on a picket line, and some of them got arrested and some of them didn't. And the ones who got arrested got sent to an after-school tutoring and basketball program. And the lesson for the other kids was, I guess I have to get arrested.
Well, that was how young people got services during those days. They had to get arrested in order to get services from the youth services division or whatever have you.
Well,
we moved away from that.
Well, we don't have the services division anymore.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. That's why anything that we do, and we've learned this lesson before. Anything that we do now, if we're going to talk about successfully reducing the footprint of law enforcement in our community, then we're going to have to talk about stepping up in terms of other government agencies and their role and responsibility in our community. And so government has to be available. It has to be available for young people. And they can't be closing at 5 o'clock in the evening, because young people are just getting out of school at 5 o'clock, so it don't need to close until like 9 or 10. When I was growing up in this community, the rec centers was in the schools, in the high schools, and the junior high schools, and they were open all evening because that's where evening basketball took place. And so we didn't have them kind of issues, but we need to get back to that. For some reason, we have lost that. And the other part of it is that I know when I was in school, there was this philosophy about that when all other agencies institutions in our society fail, that's when we would use the criminal justice system. But then we adopted and changed all of that around. So now what we do is when we have a problem with people in situations, the first thing we do is call the police rather than to call on the institutions and agencies in our society that are there to help people in the situations that people find themselves in. We have to get back to that. But we also have to be trained and educated to do that because we've been conditioned to do it a different way. And so it's just going to take work. It's not something that we can't do because, again, there are examples of those things taking places in other communities. We just have to do that here and other places if that's what we really want.
I think too, in addition to having these resources available to people, it's critical that we think about what are the things that we've criminalized and is it good for society for those things to be considered criminal? So for example, drug use or sales or sex work, like to me, if we're thinking about how do we reprioritize the police's focus onto things that only the police can and should do, like there's certain things that we as a society ask the police to do. You know, speaking for myself, for example, where I grew up, you know, myself and many of my friends like smoked marijuana in our houses, and you know, like we never interacted with the police because the way in which we did those things were not policed.
But they were not exposed to the public.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were exposed to our public, where, you know, in the places where we were, but like not. It just blows my. If we're gonna be able to successfully shrink the footprint of the police, I think part of that discussion has to be, why do we ask the police? Why do we criminalize certain things, and should those things be criminal? Is it hurting me if someone else is using recreational drugs on their own time? Like those kinds of questions. And I think the drug trade in particular is a extremely huge waste of police resources. And so I wonder if there's some avenue for, as we talk about police reform, also thinking about, you know, can we reevaluate some of the things that we consider to be criminal?
Oh, I totally agree. And that's something that you and others in the public can do. I don't think that's going to take place in this commission, but there are other efforts going on about looking at legalizing recreational drugs. I think I just read in the Washington Post or some paper about how the police department is arresting disproportionately Blacks, again, related to possession of marijuana and all of that. And you're absolutely right. They do that because the public, they think the public wants them to do that. I personally have walked up and down H Street, the new H Street, I want to say, and people are smoking marijuana and you can smell it all over. But the police are standing out there. They're not arresting people. And those were white people. But if they're over in Southeast on Martin Luther King Avenue or Good Hope Road, and Black folk are walking up and down the street smoking marijuana, they're gonna arrest them, give them a ticket or a citation because they're smoking in public. There's something wrong with that. And like you said, one of the ways of reducing the footprint is just to legalize marijuana and get that out of the police vernacular that they do. One thing that the other law changed was, and this was included in the other referendum, and that was that the smell of marijuana was not probable cause for arrest. It was just unbelievable what the police would do. They would pull a car over, and if they smelled marijuana and there were 6 people in the car, they arrested 6 people. That's crazy. That is crazy. And then they never went anywhere other than to the police station. They wouldn't want to be prosecuted, so why do that? So there's some reforms that had to take place on that side, but we also as a community need to be looking at things and realistically looking at them in relationship to, do we want the police? Well, number one, do we want to decriminalize it and legalize it, and so this isn't an issue that the police is going to be capitalizing on and arresting people. And we had to look at a variety of those issues. There are other things in the city, things in the concerns in the city that I think we can move the public to address and then take to the realm of law enforcement, because it has created overexposure of the police, and they're out there doing this job thinking that somehow or another they're doing it for the community. And the fact of the matter is that it can be disproportionately discriminatory in some communities.
So Rose, I see you, but I also know it can be hard to jump in on the phone. So I did want to do a quick round and see CJ or Vicky or Satara. Did you have a question or comment for Ron and the work of the commission that you've heard so far?
Well, I was curious as to when they were going to make their recommendation, but he did address that. And I guess I'm kind of on the fence as far as the defunding and the mental health goes, because I walk every day in DC, and so I see the mental health cases live and right in front of me. So I'm grateful when I see the police officers parked on the street just in case something jumps off. But I do think there needs to be another direction to handle that. But I like what I'm hearing, so I'm just going to sit back and watch and observe and see how all this plays out.
Let me say this: the report. I don't know if I addressed it thoroughly. There's a report that's due December the 31st, 2020, but the council member has informed us that if we need extra time, if we need additional time, that he has the power to extend the life of the commission in that as it relates to constructing the recommendations and submitting the recommendations. So he let us know that so we won't feel under any pressure in terms of putting this together, because the main work of the commission is going to get done in the committees, and then we bring that work to the commission, and then it will be I guess approved by all of the commissioners before it's moved to be passed on to the council. But that is not to feel like he didn't want us to feel like we were going to be under any pressure. So we're going to, we have time to get the work done.
Thanks. CJ, I saw you come off mute there for a second. Were you trying to hop in?
No, I felt the same, that the commission only met twice, and so I guess there's not been no real opportunities to put in any work. But I'm interested to hear about what, you all make a recommendation, and how much clout does that have with, the mayor, and how much are they really going to, invest into y'all's recommendations. It's been really also interesting and cool to listen to your perspective, as a police officer, and then, organizing now, and how you see, policing in DC.
Well, I believe it's going to have some weight because it's coming from the council. The council, just like the reforms that they have put forth, those are coming from the council. And if they want their budget, if they want their jobs, then I think they're going to have to implement the reforms, or they're going to have to implement the recommendations that's given to them. And I don't think that that's going to be a real issue, because when there's a political will, and I'm saying that from the standpoint of the council, I don't think that the mayor is going to oppose any of that. And by the time she thoroughly goes over it, I feel like it's going to be she will be in favor of it, and it'll be to their advantage to start doing the kind of things that they do. The fact of the matter is that I think the police chief understand that sometimes the police department is overwhelmed with duties and responsibilities that can be shared by other individuals and other agencies. And so they just need to do that. He's not ignorant or stupid. He knows that there's some things that they don't do well. And that's really what this is about. It's about examining, analyzing what it is that they don't do well, what things they can pass off to other agencies, other components, and then still be effective in terms of doing it. And the public, individuals like yourselves, play a role in that because you know what the police does well and doesn't do well. You know what they've done. And so you just have to speak up. We're going to be coming to the public to ask them those kind of questions. And I know the young lady before, Miss Wright, talked about working with people with disabilities. I mean, not disabilities, mental health issues. Well, if we were to look at the history of our department as it relates to mental health issues, we really need to move the police out, because if there are people on the street, for example, that are in need of mental health assistance, then we need to be able to get to them, take them off the street, take them to some place where they can begin to get services. The police don't need to be involved in that equation. But I noticed when you were saying it, you were saying it like it was a safety component. Most people who have mental health issues will hurt themselves before they hurt somebody else. And I say that because I've been trained and I've dealt with people with mental health issues. So the police are sitting there and they will do the same thing that a mental health professional would do. And that is put them in the car and take them to St. Elizabeth's or something like that. What we need to be doing is not only picking them up, taking them off the street, but trying to evaluate and assess the services that they need so they won't be going back to the street. The police can't do that. And so that's what I'm talking about, and that's what other people are talking about as it relates to trying to deal with the issues that plague our society. We need to be really keying in on them and finding out the root causes of them and then servicing them. And the police don't do that. They never have done that. And so we don't need to be assigning them responsibilities and things that they can't do. And if they have done it, we need to be evaluating whether or not they were successful with doing it.
Thanks. I want to go back to Rose, if you still had a question or comment that you'd like to raise. And I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just a comment. I think there's a lot of discussion about how things should be and how things were and it didn't work yet and all that. So I guess I would go to saying it's going to have to be sort of an all of government. If the police are here 24 hours a day and their services are needed, and we know that mental health services are needed, do we have that kind of support from other agencies? Because I honestly never see them. And I was a consultant to the public health office. And what I think is necessary is to look at it across the agencies and say, if you're going to say that other agencies are supposed to do these things, when? Not 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I think that probably hasn't yet happened to the extent that's needed. And that is going to be much more complicated to look at that and see how it needs to be done and to make it happen.
No, I agree. What we're talking about is not only, well, no, I need to say it a different way. What we're talking about is decentralizing government. We decentralized government before, and when we did, it was very effective in terms of providing service. We used to have all the services downtown in the building, and then we learned that that wasn't possible because everybody couldn't get downtown, so we decentralized it. We put the services in the community. So, and not only did we put the services in the community, we made the services available to the people based on when the people needed them. That's all we need to do now. The reason why we changed is because people in the law enforcement community said that they could do it. They said that they could take the problem, analyze it, and then refer it to other places. But the police wasn't working with those agencies and communities in order to do that. What they would do is pick up the person, take them to the jail, and they would be there, and then they would go to the services the next morning. Or even if they went on to St. E's, they would sit there all night until somebody came to work with them. What we, the answer to, or the key to the situation is that if it's going to be successful, then we have my mother-in-law some years ago, she's deceased now, and my wife worked in mental health in Washington, D.C. And they provided services, not, what is it, 2 shifts. They were day work and evening. That would suffice because the mental health hospital was open 24 hours. So we would just have to go back and do that again. Child and family services.
But I'm sorry, there's a reason why it's not happening. And it's not simply just going back and making it happen again. I think we're not dealing with how it got the way it was, but then looking at how difficult it is because it's entrenched. And why are these agencies going to suddenly stand up and do this? I think it's important to think and to be able to discuss what is needed so that we do serve the public, because I think serving the public has gotten lost in the bureaucracies of making sure that we have our budgets and that we have our job descriptions.
You're absolutely right. No, I totally agree. That, and I don't pretend any of this is going to be easy. And I know other places where it has worked, and they're doing it now and have been doing it for the last 2 or 3 years. We have a very comprehensive communication system in this city, Unified Communications Bureau, and they are very skilled at not mediating, but finding out what it is the call is for at the time the call goes in. It would only take, structurally, it would only take the establishment of a unit, some folk in a place that had those kind of skills to be available and respond to the radio call rather than for the police to respond to the call. Let me share this with you. There's a young man who's a police chief in St. Petersburg, Florida. You can look this up. In October, he's hiring civilians. He's not hiring any more police officers. And civilians in non-marked vehicles are going to be accepting calls from the communication division for a given category of calls, and civilians are going to be responding to them who have experience and degrees and experience in social services. Police officers will not be responding. He just came up with that. So it can be done. We just have to do it. And then the other part of it is, because you're absolutely right, the government has to play its role. So if the police department is going to be wise to do that, then the local government in St. Petersburg is going to have to do that too. Because the police can't be successful in doing what it is that they are going to do now without government agencies being it. That would be like if you got some young people at 10 o'clock at night and the civilians pick them up, where do they take them to? So they're going to have probably some centers, or have a center someplace to take them. You can't take them, so you're going to have to take them someplace. So there's going to have to be, that's why, let me shorten this up. That's why this whole process of change is going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over a week. It's going to be something that's going to be phased in, and we're looking at as much as maybe a year or so for it to happen with some constant evaluation and looking at the strategy in terms of it getting done. It's not going to be, and it's not going to be easy either, because you know how people deal with change. So no, I agree with you, but we have some education to do. We have some education to do and talking to people about changes.
So Ron, I want to go back to a point you brought up at the beginning where you talked about your opinions as opposed to the commission is still getting to know each other and hasn't yet taken a position on a number of issues. So have you all had conversations around consensus building? I know it looks like the list of representatives is intentionally diverse. And so like,
no, I want to tell you no, because like this is we only just had our second meeting. It came up in the meeting about we will have an opportunity to talk about that and all the other stuff. We're bringing some people in to talk to us about structural policing, other issues related to that. But we haven't, as a commission, decided any position on anything. And again, you know, what I'm sharing with you tonight myself is mine, and also some of my experiences. I've been in this for 50 years, as well as stuff that I've read and participated in myself. So, but the commission itself will get to that, because they've talked about all of that, and then sometime or another, when stuff come to us as a commission from the committees, then we have to move. We'll be able to and have to move that stuff through the commission, but it's going to take all the commissioners in order to move it. But we haven't decided that we want to defund the police. We haven't decided we want to abolish the police. We haven't decided anything, you know.
Ron,
Yeah, it's not going to work.
that's really helpful. I do want to, if people have some lingering questions for Ron, happy to have those here in our last bit together. But I do want to kind of pull the shared document back up and just write down for folks different ways that it sounds like we can learn more and get involved and continue this conversation. And would love for the group to kind of help me write that out. And Ron, you know, it sounds like one place that we could start, and if we wanted to share this with folks who weren't able to join tonight, is look at the list of committees, see when they're meeting, and listen in on the next public committee meeting that aligns to your area of interest within police reform. Mm-hmm. Does that sound right as one avenue to just learn more and get plugged in?
Absolutely. Someone, for example, someone mentioned they were interested in alternative policing measures. Well, when when that committee meets the assessing and expanding violence reduction efforts, then that would be the time to sort of sit on that. There might even be a time I know the next time we meet, we're going to have some people coming to testify. But then we're going to also, there'll be a time when we'll be asking people from the public to also contribute. And then that would be a time that they could bring ideas and recommendations. And then we'll be moving to formalize all of that and then take it to the full commission. So no, I think that's an excellent idea.
Bob, you want to jump in here? What are you thinking in terms of ways we can continue this?
I think it's so important for us to continue to let neighbors just know about this work. I think it's so hard to kind of keep up with all of the different shifting programs and initiatives, but one way we can continue is to just educate people. So this was really informative and the process that's going to take place. So for me, that's definitely how we can, a lot of the organizations, the different groups that the Public Safety Coalition brings together, to get them to be aware of this. The one place that I really also wanting more out of the police commission is just those alternative. How do we, as I said, how do we kind of decondition ourselves to the police, but then how do we fill those gaps? And then how do we let our neighbors know about that, right? Because Rose, amazing, and amazing, CJ, always on these calls, right? It's like there's always a handful of us that are really just so dedicated to this. So how do we then amplify our passion to our neighbors, that once the police commission does put these recommendations through, that other people know about them and they go into practice? I think that's really important for me.
So I have a question on that mechanism. Do you know if there will be any kind of like public comment or input opportunity once the draft recommendations come together from the commission? Or is it you've been informed by the committee meetings and the public prior to that? And if you don't have the answer to that, maybe we could follow up on that.
Yeah, I would tell you that I'm not sure, but I know that there is a public, there's a time in there where the public will be made aware of it and then get a chance to contribute. I don't know whether it's going to be building up to it after we get it or whatever, but I'd be, I'd be more than glad to, to get that from the, from that, from our co-chairs, and then I can let you know. Those, for example, at our last meeting, people were asking questions in the chat box, and our co-chairs were responding to some of those questions. So that could be one way you could get the answer to that question. And like I said, I'll try to have a conversation with them myself about that process.
The sad thing to me is that the one thing that we know we want the police to do is to prevent crime and to solve it when it happens. And they don't seem to be very good at either of those.
Oh man, that's interesting that you say that. I know that, for example, I know that the closure rate for homicide in the city is pretty good. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but the last time I read something about it, it was pretty good. It was, I think they were saying that it was equal to the national average, and I don't even know what the national average is. Although there is a list of homicides, for example, in the city that haven't been solved or fall in the category of cold cases. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, but I can tell you that that is one of the measures that I think that they should be looking at. That if people in the public like yourself don't feel like they're, solving crime, and they're not very effective at preventing crime, then what is it that we need them for? Because that should be and is part of their objective, to prevent crime, and if there is crime, to solve crime. And maybe they are, but they're not very good at communicating that information to you. So there's some things that again need to be looked at in that process. But I would tell you that I think the public is probably more effective at solving crime than the police. And to some extent, for years now, we've sort of advocated our responsibility in that equation and not really lived up to what it is that we should be doing as citizens and community people as it relates to public safety. Because it's just broader than crime, but public safety in and of itself. So those, I know we're gonna talk about that, because there's a role that the public should be playing. We don't want them to get involved in things that endanger themselves, but there's a role that the public should play in public safety.
So Ron, again, maybe another question that we can follow up on if you don't know this yet, but I thought Bob had a really good point about this committee and coalition helping to just spread the word to community members that this police reform commission exists and here are ways to get involved and like why it's important to do so. But do you know if the police reform commission has a proactive communications plan to seek out community input or invite community members to the meetings or the committees?
Layla, what I know is that we've been told that in our deliberations in the committees, we can seek public participation, involvement at the committees, in terms of the things that we're going to be dealing with. Now, at the commission level, I'm not sure about that, but I know that we've been told that we can have public testimony, we can have public involvement. Those meetings are open to the public. But I don't, and again, I don't know about at the commission level, but certainly at the committee level.
Yeah, because, you know, Bob and CJ work across Ward 1, but then for like ANC 1A, we're just one part of Ward 1. And so if it's, you know, if it's helping to make that connection across wards or across ANCs, that this is something, you know, people can seek out or participate in. I also appreciate how much time you've given us tonight, and there are a lot of ANC commissions, so it just seems like there might be some like public opportunities to spread the word and hear from more community members along the way as well. But Bob and CJ, I know that you all do a lot of work across the city, so I don't know if you have thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I can look into that, because I know one of the things that I was thinking about myself, I wanted to know if community wanted to contribute input, how would they go about doing it? And I'm not sure about that. But again, you know, I can raise that with our co-chairs, and then, but they haven't talked to us about a strategy that's associated with that. But it could very well be in the process. But I can find out. But I just haven't heard them talking about that.
I think that would be a great idea, because if you say that you want community input to make it easy, and that it comes from the commission, it's not just individual efforts, and that would make it more acceptable to people once it moves along, is that the community actually has been involved and has had access.
Right.
Bob or CJ, any additional thoughts on that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
All right, and then I know we have lost a couple attendees along the way, but Rose, Ann, and Vicky, is this something you'd be interested in continuing to be involved with, like as we kind of just, you know, wrap up our notes and recommendations coming out of this call? Would love to have a few community members be part of this going forward.
Yes, I would be interested. This is Vicky.
Thanks, Vicky.
I'm interested, but I don't have very much bandwidth. If I were involved at all, I'd like to look at the issue of the unions and what they have to do, and the accountability issues. But I don't have a big bandwidth to spend a lot of time with this.
Yeah, that's my problem. I mean, I care, but I don't know where it could fit in my schedule.
Well, I mean, I think coming out tonight and sharing, you know, what was on your mind and the questions that you asked was a great way to get involved. We just want to think about how to continue this conversation. So I appreciate your honesty.
I think maybe with more outreach of, you know, at the commission level and at the community level to get more people involved, then there might be more input from a broader section of people.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Any final questions or thoughts for Ron? Otherwise, we will wrap up here in the next little bit. I think everyone is tired. Maybe I'll just speak for myself. I'm tired.
All right.
Ron, thank you so much. You've been really generous with your time and sharing your policing history and journey and work across the city, and also appreciate your honesty, and would just love to stay in communication as we learn more about the commission and ways that we can plug in and help shape those recommendations.
Yeah, I just want to echo that and really thank you, Ron. And to that earlier point, I just wanted to highlight the commission. It's really a remarkable committee of folks. You have returning citizens, you have nonprofit heads, you have people that are pro-police, that I'll also say. So it's not just one type of person. And so I'm really energized by this effort. And I, again, just want to thank you for your time tonight, Ron, and your time that you're giving to the community like you always have throughout your career.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. You all have raised some critical questions in my mind, but particularly Rose has raised some questions, and I'm going to, at our next meeting, I'm going to raise some of the questions. I made some notes, but I'm going to raise them myself because I think that we could do all of the stuff that we're going to do, that we've been asked to do. We can do that. But in order for it to really have any credence and credibility, it also has to come from the public. The public has to agree that in some ways that's what they want too. You know, we represent the public, but we're not the public in the sense that having them approve of it has to be critical and very important. And so I'm gonna raise some of these myself with them because but again, you know, we just had 2 meetings and this is early on in the beginning, and it could be part of it. I just haven't heard that yet, but I'm definitely going to raise these questions myself because I think that that's important.
Well, I just have one thing to say. I'm a Kentuckian, and I'm terribly sad today about the decision with Breonna Taylor. It has really affected me considerably.
Yeah, I am too.
And we talk about accountability, and we talk about communities and how we care for people. That one was tough.
Yeah, it was. It was. No, I agree with you. And I was just, I still haven't been able to find the words to really talk about it because it's something wrong with what happened, that whole process, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it happens over and over.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
I'll see you all later. I'm going to go ahead. Okay.
All right. Good night, guys.
Okay. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Layla.
Thanks, Layla.
Thank you.